Good evening. This is Stephen Beagles, Bishop of Gospel Adventism, coming to you from Southern Texas. All right, I just need to spit this out. I'm on my 5th or 6th take of this video, and for some reason it's just not coming out correctly. So this is it. This is the last one. Take it or leave it. I have to enjoy doing these videos, otherwise I won't be able to do them every day. And if I get so caught up in the quality or the production, I'll just paralyze myself. So here it is. This evening I want to talk to you about Dr. Desmond Ford. And to be honest, I didn't know much about Dr. Ford until I was 18 years old, attending my first year of school at Columbia Union College in Maryland. And there had been some talk on campus about whether or not the sanctuary in heaven was literal versus symbolic. And the word Dr. Ford kept getting bantered around. But I didn't know much about Dr. Ford, so I didn't know how to include myself in the conversation. I thought it was some internal debate going on in the theology department. I was studying English and communications at the time. But I got the bright idea one day to go into the library, and I pulled out the 900-page manuscript that had been written by Dr. Ford in his defense of himself at Glacier View. And then the title of the 900-page book was Daniel 8:14. The Atonement and the Investigative Judgment. And when I read through the manuscript, I realized for the first time that the church had a problem with the 2300-day prophecy. Most specifically, that Jesus did not go into the most holy place in the sanctuary in 1844, as was taught traditionally by the church, but that he went into the most holy place at his ascension. Now, I'm not going to get all deep and theological with you, and this video may only be understood by some within the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Those of you who do understand will know where I'm coming from on this topic. So, I, for the first time, had seen a hole in the doctrine of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I still didn't get the significance of the problem until much later, and how it would tie in with the investigative judgment, and how it would affect my view of Ellen White. But let me just say a couple things about Dr. Ford. First of all, I love him for his emphasis on the gospel. He had a beautiful way of articulating the gospel message. And I wish that he had stayed on that topic and not been sidetracked or sidelined by these, what I call peripheral issues. And secondly, I don't agree with his final conclusions that we have to jettison the entire historicism model of prophecy. I think there's ways to save the 2300 day of prophecy, and there's ways to save the 70 weeks prophecy without having to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I've never met Dr. Ford personally. I've never had any direct correspondence with him. I've chatted with his wife Jillian a few times online. And I've had some contact with Good News Unlimited, and more specifically Dr. Eliezer Gonzalez. And I did some work for Dr. Gonzalez on their social media sites. And I've also written a couple of articles for the Good News Unlimited magazine. But this was years ago. And so I'm not currently an employee of Good News Unlimited. I don't represent Good News Unlimited. And Gospel Adventist Ministries is my own ministry, my own online presence. And it represents my publishing efforts. I've written over 195 articles I've posted online. And now I'm starting this YouTube channel under Gospel Adventist Ministries. But Dr. Ford did not teach me the gospel. I learned the gospel by reading the Bible, Paul's book of Romans and Galatians. I learned the gospel from studying the Reformation, more specifically Martin Luther and his commentary on Galatians. And I also learned the gospel from the pastors and teachers I had growing up who believed in righteousness by faith and who took very seriously the concept of having assurance of salvation. But Dr. Ford has had a huge impact on my life for the two reasons I mentioned, is the fact that he was a beautiful gospel preacher. You could listen to him speak, and he'd speak for an hour, and it would only seem like 10 minutes. And two, I have respect for his willingness to stand up for his beliefs at Glacier View and identify a real problem within our Adventist theology that has never been quite resolved. But having said all that, I do not consider myself a Fordite. I don't consider myself a believer in the Fordism or whatever you want to call it. So I believe that Desmond Ford was a gospel Adventist. But not all gospel Adventists will agree with the conclusions of Dr. Desmond Ford. This is Stephen Beagles, Bishop of Gospel Adventism. You have a wonderful evening. God bless.